Hello friends, my name is Robin Sharma. I am a doctoral candidate in the Learning Sciences program of McGill University. In this video, I will be talking about the Vanier Doctoral Fellowships, giving a brief overview about the process and some tips and strategies to follow. This presentation is divided into 5 parts. Please feel free to jump to any one of them using the links if you want to. So let's get started. Talking about the Vanier, it is a federal fellowship which is open to Canadian citizens, permanent residents, and international students as well. Other eligibility criteria is pretty much straightforward, and I will encourage you to explore the official Vanier page. There is just one catch in terms of the number of months in the program that a student must have spent before the award is administered. As you can see in this section, that it says you should not have completed more than X months of full-time study in your doctoral program, and this will depend if you are joining from a bachelor's program or coming in from a master's program. For 2021, there are 166 scholarships to be disbursed, and the deadline for this year's application is 17 September 2020. I will encourage you to also go through the GPS and ECP web pages which are given in the description to know more about the application process and the materials which might be required. So some things which are specific to the Vanier are that it is one of the most competitive scholarship opportunity, offering $50,000 per year for 3 years. In addition to academic excellence, it also lays equal emphasis on leadership and research potential. And when you log into the official ResearchNet portal, that is the portal for filling in your application, you might see a deadline which is different from your departmental deadline. So it is important that you prepare all the application material before the departmental deadline so that you can send it to your department for an internal review. Also, there is a link in the description which you can use to see the number of quota or the number of seats that are allocated to different universities, different nominating institutions. Some tips, most of these are common to most scholarships and most fellowships, but some of these, as you can see, are specific to the Vanier. It is recommended that you start early and that you have multiple drafts of your application. You must, absolutely must take feedback from your supervisor. It is really very helpful. And since the committee which evaluates your application is interdisciplinary, it is quite possible that your application is reviewed by someone who is not from your field of research. So it's a good practice to have a general audience or professionals from other disciplines review your application. And I cannot stress this enough that you must make use of the writing support sessions that are offered by Graphos and Skillsets if you are at McGill, where you also get the opportunity to get guidance from previous awardees, people who have been successful in bagging the Vanier, and you can also read examples of some successful applications. Things to keep in mind for the Vanier are that the committee sometimes changes protocols and criteria, so you must thoroughly go through the criteria. And one thing to remember is that the ResearchNet application requires you to generate a PIN, which takes about 24 hours to be generated. So it is suggested that you do not wait until the last day to fill the online application, but you do that in advance as well, parallelly as you are preparing other parts of your application. And the Canadian Common CV, for you to be able to link to your ResearchNet application, you need to generate a code and then mention it in your ResearchNet application. Also, if you make updates to your Canadian Common CV, you need to regenerate the code and then add the updated code to the ResearchNet application. So this is something that you should keep in mind, and not make a mistake of adding a previous code for your Canadian Common CV. Now this is the list of requirements for the 2021 application. As you can see, there were two things which were added this year, the SGBA plus analysis and the fact that you will be respectfully involving and engaging indigenous communities if this is something which pertains to your research. And this one document about the doctoral studies timeline which asks you to mention if you have taken any leaves of absence in your doctoral program. In the coming up slides, we will talk about the three most important aspects of your application material, that is the 2-page personal leadership statement, the 2-page proposal, and the 1-page research contribution, and some strategies to keep in mind while you prepare these. So beginning with the research contributions documents, sometimes we tend to assume that the researcher would know the details of a project or a contribution that we are mentioning. So it is important that you not only mention what was your research contribution, but also explain to the reader why it is important to the field of your research and what did it take from your side to get there. how did you get there, and what was your experience. For the personal leadership statement, I would recommend that you talk about a diversity of roles and responsibilities, not just your leadership capabilities in your field of research, but in terms of knowledge mobilization, or if you have some community experience, how you have disseminated your research. Things like that are quite helpful. Sometimes when we are focusing on the leadership aspect, we tend to forget the personal aspect of this document, and it is important that you also talk about your personal journey and what decisions and what life experiences led you to where you are today. It is also a good practice to connect your research with your personal leadership statement and convey how this research will be helpful in establishing you as a leader in your field. Now, the final most important document is the research proposal. Again, coming back to the fact that the committee that evaluates your proposal will be interdisciplinary, and it is possible that your application is read by someone who is not from your field. So it is suggested that you do not use any jargon or any specific terms, and even if you are using them, you take some space to define them for the reader. Also, it is important to know that things are not final, and the committee would understand if you develop or make changes to your research proposal as you move forward in your PhD program. So it's not that the things that you mention have to be followed in exactly the same way, but at the same time, it is important that you provide some concrete details to give an impression that you know what you are talking about and you have some idea of how you will be carrying out your research. So it is suggested that you do talk about the methodology and the analysis that you will be using in your research, and also about some knowledge mobilization plans that you have for after your research is completed. So this was pretty much it, a brief overview of the Vanier requirements and some tips to keep in mind while you are preparing your application. Thank you very much.